DeAndre Hunter made his debut for the Cavs, and I think he's going to make a big difference on this team.
What are the Hornets getting? And newly acquired center Mark Williams. Does Doug quit the show? Does he put on the big Mark Williams hat?
Do the Aaron Rodgers thing again, whatever.
A couple of new veteran wide receivers are now about to hit the market.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Luka Doncic makes his Lakers debut.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
This is a really, really fun time for the Lakers with Luka Doncic now officially on the court.
He makes his debut for the Lakers on Monday at the Crypt against the Jazz. Andy, we've been waiting, Andy, for about a week since the Lakers announced this incredibly stunning trade for the actual time when Doncic would make his debut, put on the uniform, get on the floor, get past that calf injury.
So caught up by the Mark Williams trade getting rescinded, you almost forget, oh yeah, Luka Doncic is on this team.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. The maybe not today, but certainly this week. The news around Mark Williams, the Hornets apparently exploring options, according to Shams at ESPN, to dispute the physical. So that saga is not done yet. But the news, obviously, for tonight,
Dalton Connect's just sitting on the bench in a hoodie. No idea where he's going to be any day from now. This is bizarre.
So the news, though, obviously, the big event of the evening in the 132-113 win over the Jazz at the Crypt on Monday is the debut of Luka Doncic. It was a major event, not just across basketball, certainly across LA. Every seat in the arena has a 77 jersey put on it. LeBron put one on before the game. Full house basically there watching him come out for warm-ups beforehand. A palpable energy inside the arena. And when he was introduced last, it should be noted, you got the final introduction. The Lakers fans are clearly excited to see what's coming with this pairing. And like just the event of Luka Doncic was everything that the Lakers hoped it would be on the first night.
Well, first of all, you can tell that they are very serious about impressing Luka. They want to make sure that he feels welcome and that this is the franchise he wants to play for the rest of his life, because they spelled Doncic correctly on the back of the shirts that they gave out to the crowd, because as of late, that is not a given for some of the things the Lakers have done, whether you're talking about Kobe's statue, the typos.
It was a little off on those Coop jerseys.
I mean, like they really dotted the I's and crossed the T's for Luka. I mean, this has been building up, like you said, for like a week. And, the Lakers are an international global brand. Luka is an international global superstar. He took questions in 3 different languages after the game tonight, English, Spanish, and Slovenian. And the excitement, you got to go back, honestly, since LeBron arrived.
Oh, for sure.
This, as big of the trade for AD was, you absolutely knew this was coming, because LeBron and Clutch and Anthony Davis had spent the entire season before that very publicly agitating for AD to become a Laker. So it was so fait accompli, but also too, like, with all sincere respect to Anthony Davis, who is an incredible player, he's not at the level of Luka. Like, so this is just, Rob Pelinka, I believe, described it as seismic when he was talking about Luka during the introductory press conference for Luka.
Oh, yeah.
That's not an understatement, man. This is big.
This is a generational trade. This sort of thing in different sports, this level of trade, this the the magnitude of a trade like this happens once every, 15, 20, 25 years, whatever it might be. So, and obviously there is, I mean, the level of speculation and curiosity of what it would look like to put LeBron James and Luka Doncic on the floor together, two of the the best passers in the league at any size, and then when you start to factor in how big these guys are and the vision that they have and the capabilities that these guys have as passers, what would it look like to put the two of them on the floor at the same time? And then throw in a guy like Austin Reeves, who himself is an excellent passer, and suddenly the Lakers have the potential for a level of ball movement that has not been seen. The guys in the pregame show, Worthy and
Byron Scott,
I think, was in studio on Monday, talked about it and I think they're right. It's like having two Magic Johnsons on the floor. Like, that is essentially what the Lakers have. And you saw it quickly in this game. They just the level of ball movement and the quality of the shot creation. I understand they were playing the Utah Jazz, but these are guys who have not really even practiced together, and the Lakers were generating so many good looks, passing up good shots for great shots, sometimes even overpassing to the point. And then there was the thing that I really noticed, Andy, was the ability for between Luka and LeBron to extend all 24 seconds and still generate a good shot, where the Lakers before would get to about 16 and you could start feeling the panic about where is the shot going to come from. That's just not going to be the case. They're going to be able to find a shot through 24 seconds with these guys on the floor.
Right. It doesn't feel like 24 seconds are on the verge of elapsing because you haven't been able to figure out what the hell to do during the possession. It often felt like they were looking for the best possible shot, just whipping the ball around to make sure somebody would either be open or you're creating an open lane from people rotating. Talk about the passing with both Luka and LeBron and the Magic-esque quality that both of them possess as passers, but also physically. In a lot of ways, they are the two closest players to Magic since Magic. There was a play, I don't remember if it was in the second quarter or the third quarter, but Luka, off a defensive rebound, throws a hit ahead to LeBron, streaking down the court, hits him perfectly, easy layup. Those are the type of passes that we typically count on from LeBron. I'm not saying he's never been on the receiving end of one of those as a Laker, but he has certainly not been the recipient as often as he has been the passer. And knowing that is a regular possibility, and B, something that can take advantage of the way LeBron is still a terror in transition. And there were other great passes too. There was an incredible whip pass that Luka had cross court to Dorian Finney-Smith in the corner, which ended up setting up a basket for Rui. But just that type of pass that you're like, holy bleep.
This is where the size
scrambles a defense.
This is where the size aspect of it is so important. It's like, because those guys are so big and they have unnaturally good vision, they're able to go over. We talk about the vertical threat for, and certainly Jackson Hayes, who opened the game with 2 dunks. He's going to shoot.
He opened the third quarter too with a dunk. Dude, Jackson
shoot
Hayes,
about 90% for the rest of the year.
Jackson Hayes is loving life.
If he takes more than 5 shots for the rest of the season that are more than 1.5 feet away from the rim, I'll be surprised. But the vertical, is this a term? Vertical passing? They have the ability to see over a defense and throw the ball over and around and across a defense because of their size, combined with their vision. There really isn't an angle that they're not able to make passes with. And that to me is one of the most stunning aspects of putting both of it's. If Denver had a second guy like Nikola Jokic, it would be the same kind of thing, where there's just so much. it's different to see a guy who's in LeBron's case 6'8", Luka's 6'6", make some of these create angles than it is a guy who's 6'2" or 6'3". That's just physics.
Real quick before we go to the break, because you were talking about angles, I wanted just to make sure also, while I remember, to point out a pass Luka made off a drive into the lane, bounce pass, kick out to Rui in the corner. That led to a three. Like, that was another one of those, wait, what did he just do? And we see that all the time from LeBron, to have two guys who can make you rewind a play while you're watching, not just because it was spectacular, but so you could understand what the bleep just went on.
Yeah,
that's potentially very fun movie.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Imagine going to the big game this Sunday. That's what a lot of the people around me here on Radio Row are going to do, and the fans who are coming to New Orleans. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have time searching. Inspiration makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and take the work on tickets. Gametime. Download Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
DeAndre Hunter made his debut for the Cavs, and I think he's going to make a big difference on this team.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Minnesota Timberwolves 128-107 Monday night, and the much anticipated debut of DeAndre Hunter, I thought, went really well for the Cavs. So he was in the starting lineup in his first game, which I don't necessarily think was something that was planned when they acquired him via trade last week, but Max Strus didn't play in this game because of a sore right ankle, so that led to Hunter getting the call. And part of that is because without Strus, obviously Isaac Okoro already out with a shoulder injury. He's not going to play until after the All-Star break. Dean Wade currently out with a knee injury. He's not going to play until after the All-Star break. So there really wasn't another option for the starting small forward spot on Monday night. I think in a perfect world, Max Strus probably starts and the Cavs have a better opportunity to ease DeAndre Hunter into this, but I thought he looked really good. He played physical defense on Anthony Edwards, and he was a big part of the reason why Minnesota struggled so mightily offensively in that first quarter. The Wolves only scored 12 first quarter points. They were, I believe, 2 of 21 from the floor in the first quarter, which I know for sure is the fewest amount of made field goals that an NBA team has had in a single quarter this season. I think it's the worst quarter of offense I've ever covered in my 10 years being around the NBA in any capacity. I cannot remember a single quarter that was as bad offensively as what the Wolves went through in the first quarter on Monday night. And I thought DeAndre Hunter was a big part of that. He defended Anthony Edwards really, really well early on in this game. And Edwards finished going for 44. And we can talk about how and why that happened. And I don't necessarily think that that stuff is a reflection of DeAndre Hunter, not to say that he was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, because he wasn't, but I don't think that it's all a reflection of him. And Hunter, I think, is somebody who's going to be a game changer for the Cavs. And after one game, I don't want to jump to some huge conclusion, but I just kind of think that he was everything that this team was missing. And it's hard for me to say they were missing a lot because, listen, after this win, they're 43-10. They've got the second best record in basketball. They're a half game behind Oklahoma City for the league's best record. So it's not as if they needed a ton of help, right? Like, they were already a really, really good team. But Hunter gives them something they didn't have, and that is a dynamic, athletic wing that can do a lot on both ends of the floor. And Dean Wade is a really good role player for them. He is certainly a 3-and-D wing. But I think that what we saw, even offensively, from Hunter on Monday night is different than what Dean Wade can provide. Like, one of the three-pointers that Hunter hit was on the left wing. It was in the second half, and he pulled up after a couple of dribbles. And just like, that's not the shot that Dean Wade is taking and making. That brings a different element to the Cavs offensively. And Hunter's not tasked with coming in and, really helping this Cavs offense, because the Cavs are already the best offense in basketball. Like, they really don't need help on that end of the floor. They need help on the defensive end of the floor because they're not an elite defensive team the way that their personnel probably suggests that they should be, where they have some really elite defenders. Now, the perimeter ones, for the most part, have not been able to stay healthy this year, and that's a big reason why I think that they are entering Monday night 8th in the NBA in defense. I can't imagine they moved up. Their defensive rating was like 106 or 105 in this game, and I don't think that's a big enough step forward for them to move up to 7th. But defensively, they looked good for the most part in this game. Like I said, Anthony Edwards had 44 points, and I don't think like it was a dominant 44-point performance. Part of it was the Cavs decided that once the first quarter happened the way that it did, where they built a big lead, they were dominant defensively. As I mentioned, the Wolves only had 2 total made field goals in the first quarter, which is something I've never seen before. And part of it was poor shot making from Minnesota. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, the Cavs are the best defense in the league now because of this. But the Cavs were really good. I thought they were really physical too. And I thought that was a big reason why Minnesota struggled to get things going, to find a rhythm. Anthony Edwards, I think, missed his first 6 or 7 shots, which probably makes the fact that he did go for 44 points all the more aggressive. And I do think that DeAndre Hunter may have been a little amped up too. He finished with 5 fouls. He only played 23 minutes because he was in foul trouble. So it does make you wonder, okay, well, what's it going to look like in a full game when he actually gets to play a full starter's allotment of minutes? I think it's going to look really good. I think that he is a guy that he raises this team's ceiling. Like I thought that before this trade and their record, their net rating, like everything this team has done points to them being a true championship contender this season. Everything that they've done. Does that mean they're going to win the title? Of course that doesn't mean that. It means they're capable of it. Now, having to go through Boston is not going to be easy. It's still not going to be easy with DeAndre Hunter, but I think it makes it more palatable for them. I think that matchup becomes a little bit better. I'm not even saying that they would be favored in that matchup with DeAndre Hunter, but I think that they are better suited to handle that. And I don't think that DeAndre Hunter got cooked by Anthony Edwards in this game. I thought the Cavs decided, hey, we're going to try and play zone. We're going to play a box and one. We're going to try a bunch of these different defensive coverages, which I do think is a tough thing to do. And DeAndre Hunter, of course, was not on the floor for all of this because, as I mentioned, he only played 22 minutes in this game because of the foul trouble. But that is also one of the things Donovan Mitchell mentioned after the game is part of the reason why the Cavs are 8th in defense is because they're not playing just one coverage. And Kenny Atkinson talked about that. I don't remember if it was before or after the game, but before he got here, like this was a team that kind of did what they did defensively, and that was it. They didn't mix in a ton of zone. They didn't mix in a ton of other coverages. They were really good at what they did over the past several years with JB Bickerstaff, but they didn't really have an extensive defensive playbook. And now their defensive playbook is pretty expansive. It has a lot of stuff in it. So that means that because they're mixing and matching those things that, they're not great at all of those things. And that has led to some defensive slippage. I do think that Hunter came out in this game pretty amped up. And he got a great ovation from the fans as he was introduced as part of the starting 5. He got a pretty big cheer from the fans, which I thought was to be expected. And I thought that especially in that first shift, he looked like someone that was very, very aggressive defensively. He was really physical, and that's why he was in foul trouble. Like the fouls that he got called for the most part, were not cheapies. There was the one on Anthony Edwards where Edwards kind of got him on his hip, and I don't necessarily know that was a really great foul call, but there were some other ones where Hunter was certainly physical, and I understood why the whistle was blown, but that's going to be the type of defender that he's going to be. And because of that, I think this Cavs team is going to go to another level. And there are some lineups that I'm going to talk about coming up a little bit later on in the show that Kenny Atkinson mentioned as being able to break out if and when this team does get fully healthy, that should be downright terrifying defensively for any team to have to deal with. And the other aspect of this is the offense. And as I mentioned, DeAndre Hunter is not tasked with coming in here necessarily making the offense better because this offense is already so great, but he is going to provide another legitimate option for them. I don't think that he's going to be able to create as much for others as Karis LeVert was able to. Like that is a very underrated part of Karis LeVert's game was he was a terrific passer over these past couple of seasons in Cleveland. And DeAndre Hunter is not going to be that, but I also do think that he's going to be able to just do things as a bigger body that the Cavs have been missing in terms of being able to create for himself. The creation for others, again, not really going to be there, but he's going to be able to can take some tough shots. And the three-pointer on the left wing that he hit in the second half, like that's just not something that really was part of the Cavs offensive playbook. And I don't think that's something that, like, if that's what they're relying on, it's probably not a great thing, but being able to use that in a pinch is, I think, a pretty good sign for the Cavs offensively. And then the one other thing defensively, just because there will be some lineups, and he spent a lot of time on the floor with Evan Mobley on Monday night. There were times where he was defending Anthony Edwards in the first quarter, and Evan Mobley was on Rudy Gobert. And the Wolves, of course, want to run a pick and roll with Edwards and Gobert, trying to get those guys in the action because, of course, that's what Minnesota does. Gobert is one of the best screeners in the NBA, and they're going to use him as such. Well, imagine if you're a team and you want to attack a big guy, and typically we don't see small pick and rolls, right? Like that's not a common thing in today's NBA. So you're going to see like these wing big pick and rolls, and even some wing small pick and rolls, or some small big pick and rolls that DeAndre Hunter is going to be involved in, and it's going to be him and Evan Mobley defending pick and roll. Like that is good luck. I mean, I don't know. I know that there's no perfect coverage for the pick and roll, which is why it has been such an effective play in the history of the NBA. But man, trying to score on those two, I think, is going to be a really tall task for a lot of opponents. I think that DeAndre Hunter already has made the Cavs better, and I think that is something that's going to continue as he gets more and more comfortable. And I do think the other thing too that's worth mentioning here is this acquisition comes at a really good time because he gets to play 2 games, and then he's going to have some practice time. He's going to have some time to really dive in during the All-Star break, to dive into what the Cavs do. And he's going to be able to get up to speed, and he's not going to be on the floor during that time because the Cavs will be off from their game Wednesday until next Wednesday without practices or anything like that. But that could be time for him to get those mental reps, to really dive in and really get his life in order too, because moving to a new city, not the easiest thing to do.
What are the Hornets getting? And newly acquired center Mark Williams. Does Doug quit the show? Does he put on the big Mark Williams hat?
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast.
I joked about this with you multiple times. I joked about this with Colin. I joked about this with lots of people, that there was a possibility that this trade could not go through because of a failed physical. That if you are a Panthers fan, you might understand it via the Bashad Breeland situation. Look it up, kids. You'll see the similarities. And yet we still did the reaction pods. We did everything. We had the farewell message. It was all over. Mark was going to LA. Dalton Connect was in the building, by the way. He was at Spectrum Center. He set foot down in the Queen City. Cam Reddish, who knows what was happening with Cam Reddish? He's just floating about in the ether of all of it. But now the trade is being rescinded, as we see the Lakers on Saturday night say that their trade was going to be rescinded, with sources telling Shams that Mark Williams failed LA's physical exam, and that physical showed multiple issues, but it was not due to a failed back, however. And that was one injury lots of people were worried about. The big man, the back issues that held him out for quite a while. It wasn't the back, but it was a couple of other issues, apparently, that LA found in the physical. Let's stop here, and then let's serve it over to the net to you. How you feeling, my man Dougie B?
I might serve it right back to you, because I did 45 minutes of live content that you can go check out on. You can go check it out on the YouTube feed. I don't know if I ever migrated it over the audio feed. Sorry for the listeners out there. There was a lot going on Sunday, but so I want to serve it back to you. Here's the biggest question that I'm getting across the board, from subtext to Substack to this podcast to the comments that I got on the Sunday show. Do you think this is a case of Lakers shenanigans? And what I mean by that is, was this the Lakers getting a day or so fan reaction, league reaction within their own organization to the trade and what they gave up, a first-round pick, unprotected, for a player that has not played a lot of games over relative to the amount of years he's been in the league, and the injury history. They look at that and they say, oh, man, you know what? I don't know about this trade anymore. And so they do the physical and they just find something. You can always find something. Do you think this was a case of Lakers shenanigans?
I don't think that, but I can understand why people think that because we don't have any clarity on the injuries as to why they have a problem with the physical. If it's not the back and they have enough information to tell us what it's not, but they aren't telling us what it is, that's misleading. That's frustrating. Okay, it's not the back. Okay, well, what is it? There's some other issues in there. So I could understand why that question would come about. But you were asking this because of the fan reaction. You have a couple days to settle down. The fans don't like it. Maybe members within the team that carry some weight in that organization don't like it. I don't know about the latter. What I do know, and that what we talked about, Doug, was the fan reaction was positive for the Lakers. They don't necessarily care too much about the Hornets fan reaction, but from everything that I saw from the analytics nerds, from just good old-fashioned Lakers fans that have been there since the Showtime Lakers days, that have been here since Kobe Shaq, that have been here since Kobe Powell. Like those are the fans that really seem to like this trade and were willing to pay the price, give that unprotected first up, give Dalton Connect up to go get their center of the future. Luka, LeBron, Mark, oh my God, they're going to create sweet music with one another out there on the court. That's what it felt like to me. Like, I know there are some analysts that didn't love it from the Lakers' perspective. Sam Vecini comes to mind. I know Nate Duncan also had some criticisms, but I think every trade is going to have some criticisms, and you do have to give up a lot to get something of value. That's how it goes. So if you're asking because of the fan reaction, do I think that the Lakers are up to some shenanigans? I do not. I think the Lakers, if they truly did go through a physical, okay, they found something that they did not like, and they're giving up a lot to go get this player, they're well within their right to say, hey, this looks off. I don't think Mark is going to be right in 3 years, in 5 years, whatever. So this trade is no more. Thus is the risk when you start to move guys right before the trade deadline, when you turn your homework in right at the moment, right at the buzzer. Well, hey, man, you forgot to answer these last couple questions. Sorry, you're going to get docked those points. So now you're getting Mark Williams back. These are the problems with how it all went down. I don't necessarily think that we can blame the Lakers here. That's where I stand as we can go back and forth. But those are my thoughts on the Lakers shenanigans part of it.
Yeah, I don't think the Hornets or the Lakers did anything wrong as it relates to like something being NBA illegal, because if that were the case, I think we would have already gotten reporting. You would have had one team go to the league and say, hey, this other team was up to no good. Check it out. The fact that the Hornets immediately released something welcoming Mark Williams back and saying he's a starter and all of this stuff to me says they're upset with the Lakers for going back on the trade, but there was nothing wrong.
So with the other team, what was it? The Lakers they were talking about?
I'm sorry. Yes, the other team.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
So they're certainly upset, but you're right. The Lakers have the right to do this, and this is what I've been telling folks on in the Sicko Brigade. I would want the Hornets to have that same right. One day the Hornets will trade their first round picks for players, and I want those players run through the gamut of physicals to make sure that the Hornets don't have another injury situation. Had they made the move for Mikal Bridges, I understand that Mikal has never been injured in his entire career. I still want him run through all of the physicals that they can do all your homework, because you are investing. In that case, it would have been 5 first-round picks. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 5. You've got to do the homework. That's what good organizations do. That's what the Lakers did in this case. A lot of people are hanging on to this quote that was not the full quote.
That's right. Yes.
The Lakers looking into the medicals. The medicals are just like documented medical reports on injuries that he's already had. They looked at those and said, well, he hasn't had any surgery. Doctors say these things are good. But the rest of the quote is Rob Pelinka saying, yeah, but we got to still do our deep dive physical. And that's
I have
what they
the quote
did.
here. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I have the quote. He said, yeah, we vetted the injuries he's had. We're not concerned about those. We will have a chance to have a physical. Or he said, we're not concerned about those. And then Twitter cut it off. Whoa, what's going on here? But really, when you keep reading, we will have a chance to have a physical and continue to do a deep dive and make sure that what we've talked about and seen in the parentheses electronic medical records, that all lines up. So we'll have that step in the process of doing a full physical before the trade becomes official.
I wish that the Lakers were up to shenanigans. Let me just say that, because like we're sitting here, we're doing a lot of defense. We're defending the Hornets and the Lakers in this situation.
Yeah. Don't think the Hornets did anything wrong. Yeah.
No, but the truth of the matter is that you have a player in Mark Williams that his body doesn't look right. We've been talking about that for weeks on this show, that there's something going on when you look at how he's playing now versus how he played in the first season or so that we saw him in action. He looks different. There's something going on. And so if it's not the back or the foot, yeah, you now have some questions about what is that. It doesn't mean that his career is over by any stretch of the imagination. You have this example of Tyson Chandler, who failed a physical because of a toe issue that he didn't even know was an issue, and he doesn't get traded to Oklahoma City to play for that championship contender. Instead, he gets traded to the Bobcats, who then trade him to the Mavericks, and he goes on to be, I think, Defensive Player of the Year. He won a championship with the Mavericks. So, like, Mark's career is not over, but there's obviously something going on, and I don't know if we're going to find out exactly what it is, but the Hornets have a situation on their hands.
So you bring up the point of if they were to trade their first-round pick for something of risk but very high reward if it all works out, we can just go to the trade proposal we've talked about for quite some time. If they were to go after Zion Williamson and it was a high-risk, high-reward type of feature, then I would tell you I want to go through every single thing possible on that physical to make sure that they're getting what they're hoping for, with 2 first-rounders, 3 first-rounders going out of the door. But the other thing is, you're right, Doug, it would be tough for Hornets fans to say that the Lakers are up to all of these shenanigans, that they are trying to pull a fast one on the Hornets because of buyer's remorse.
Good. Oh, you didn't think I had that? You didn't think I had that one in the bag, did you?
No, it was a trigger. It was a reaction. It was firing something off deep within your brain, and you needed to share that. But I am glad you did, and that's not even kind of joking. I really am glad you shared that.
Well, that's what we've had two genuine laughs on this show. I'll just pull back the curtain a little bit. Sometimes when you're doing an entertaining show, someone says something. Maybe you don't hear it quite as well, or maybe it's not like it doesn't make you like gutturally laugh, but you have to support your teammate, and so you give the laugh. Sometimes you want to call that a fake laugh, you want to call that whatever, an over-exaggerated laugh, that's fine. I think we've had 2 genuine chuckles on this show today.
Yeah, I wish you wouldn't have let that. That's when I didn't want you to let out of the bag, to be honest with you. I wanted people to live in their ignorant bliss. These guys laugh at each other's jokes all the time. They secretly hate each other. My point being, it would be tough. It would be tough to point to the Lakers and say, hey, funny business going on, when we've talked about his body looking injury-ridden the last couple of weeks. Yeah, I don't have any of the information because of the physicals or stemming from the physical, right? All I know is that he did look like an issue. His body looked to be more of an issue the last few weeks of struggling mightily out there on the court than it had before the injuries. There's just no doubt. When Lakers fans were so happy about what they were getting in Mark, a lot of those highlights that they were showing in that package, they came from his rookie season, and they came from like the 15, 20 games that he played before he got injured. But Mark was a problem.
So close. They were so close.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. I'm looking tonight at Grizzlies Suns. The Grizzlies favored on the road amid all the trade drama in Phoenix, but they're laying just 2 points. Yes, thank you very much. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers.
With Auburn being number 1 in the AP poll yesterday, Alabama being number 2, and then Alabama being number 1 in the coaches poll, and Auburn being number 2. Somehow, this is the first time in the history of SEC basketball where the number 1 team will play the number 2 team in the country. How has that never happened in SEC basketball play before? You tell me. I have no clue, but it's awesome that Auburn's part of history, Kyle.
I have no idea how that's never happened. I mean, think of all the really good teams. Like it's crazy. That like a Kentucky and a Florida, or a Kentucky and a Tennessee, or a Tennessee and Florida, or somebody like that. Like
Arkansas, like they've had their
Arkansas,
crazy.
Arkansas's one. Yeah, exactly. How has that never happened? It blows my mind, and it's kind of really, really cool that Auburn gets to be a part of it. And even crazier, it's Auburn versus Alabama. Like the intensity. It almost feels like they set it up that way. Like maybe it's just kind of a made for TV thing, but it did work out. They are probably the 2 best teams in the country.
I mean, the level of passion and disgust. I'm really trying to not use the word hate, but it's really tough to describe the situation without it. But I mean, these 2 fan bases over everything. Like it's just they're nitpicking each other's resumes. I mean, after Auburn lost to Florida on Saturday and Alabama held on against Arkansas, just both fan bases going back and forth on who should be number 1. There's just going to be so much, I don't want to say pent up emotion, just general emotion that happens in Tuscaloosa Saturday afternoon. It's, it's going to be insane. It's going to be insane.
I'm going to say something crazy right now. Okay.
Reckless? Are you about to be reckless?
You may think this is crazy, but I think I dislike Alabama basketball infinitely more than I dislike Alabama football. I don't know why. I dislike Alabama basketball on the level that I dislike Georgia football. Legitimately, I think I dislike. I think I'm serious. I think that's reality. Is that crazy?
Yes.
Yes. I don't know.
Yes, I think so. I
think it's because I just grew to just respect what happened in Alabama football. Like it just was what it was. And we're actually really good at basketball. And it's like the one thing you may have that you can kind of hold against them. And now they're getting really good at basketball. And I just don't like Nate Oates. Nate Oates is not very likable in general. Nick Saban kind of had like the grandpa likable vibe that you just sort of respected him
later at Alabama.
Exactly.
I think the first half of his tenure at Alabama, I don't think there's any way you would say that.
From about 2020 on, to me, he was fine. I kind of enjoyed.
It did feel different, and I don't know if that was just because it was we just got so used to them winning, or what. But this game, man, like it doesn't really feel like. One, it doesn't feel like Auburn plays a game tonight. For one,
yeah.
I mean, does this scream potential trap game? With Auburn playing Vanderbilt on the road tonight? Like, I don't know. Because we're all so focused on Saturday, and it's like, well, it's going to be big no matter what, because they still will both be number 1 on respective polls, but it will lose a little bit of luster, I think. So Auburn's got to take care of business against Vandy first.
I don't think it'll lose luster. I mean, look, I don't think you can look over Vandy. You can't. Even though you're a 10-point team. You're a 10-point favorite. It's like 9.5 points, I think, on the road. But that arena, we just have so many demons there. We can't win there. So you can't. If you overlook them, you're going to walk into Alabama with 2 losses in a row, and you're staring at number 3 because they're going to be tough to beat on the road as well. So, I mean, you'd be foolish to overlook Vandy at this point in time, no matter who's going to be there Saturday. Game day, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's calling the game, doesn't matter what's going on pregame. If you overlook Vandy, you're going to get your butt whipped.
Yeah, no question about it. And so, I mean, if you're Auburn, different people feel differently about, dropping a game, and if it's a wake up call and all that. Maybe so. Like Auburn didn't drop in the rankings, so like, do you get the wake up call that you needed, or just like the loss itself? Is that enough? Like, I don't fully know, and I don't know if you tuned into this or not, Kyle. But like Daryl and I had this debate where like a lot of Auburn fans, it was like this weird split of a loss is good, A loss is good for us. It keeps us focused. Maybe it takes the pressure off. Like, does it? You're still number one. I don't know. Then the other half of it is, oh my goodness, we're about to fall apart. We're about to lose 3 straight games, and Bruce Pearl's going to go to Indiana. Like, that's the other side of the coin, which the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I do think it's closer to the former. I do think it's closer to the, maybe this does take off some of the pressure. Maybe this does give this coaching staff some room to say, hey, what you're doing, is it good enough to achieve all the things that you're perfectly capable of achieving? Where are you on that spectrum, do you think?
So I feel like sometimes you can sleepwalk a little bit offensively. I think you can kind of lean on guy like Janai bailing you out, or you can lean on guys hitting some threes and it kind of bail you out and limp into a win. I don't feel like you can sleepwalk on the defensive side. And that's why I felt like for the longest time, Auburn didn't necessarily have to win. Like, there was no loss that could get you locked back in, because you have to be locked in on the defensive side. And they were playing such good defense. And then Florida comes along and just absolutely, I don't care what the score was. People were arguing with me that it wasn't a blowout. That was a blowout. They beat our tail.
I had that same argument with some folks Sunday morning. I'm like, the game was not like, the game was never way more lopsided.
It was never close. It was never close. And they beat you on the offensive end. They scored on you at will. And to me, that should be a wake-up call that, hey, look, we have been limp. We've just out-talented people on defense, but we weren't completely locked in, and a really good team came along and exposed us. And, maybe we lost our focus a little bit. Who knows? But that should be able to, hopefully that's a little bit of a wake-up call on the defensive side that, hey, you may sleepwalk on offense, but if you sleepwalk on defense, you'll get your tail beat. Especially this back half of the schedule is tough, man. It's tough, and it's not getting any easier. There's no breaks, and you start it tonight.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Imagine going to the big game this Sunday. That's what a lot of the people around me here on Radio Row are going to do, and the fans who are coming to New Orleans. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have time searching. Inspiration makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and take the work on tickets. Gametime. Download Gametime, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
We'll do the Aaron Rodgers thing again, whatever.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Who asks, why should I look forward to Aaron Rodgers as Vikings QB? Look, it's not happening. Do I have to tell you? It's not happening. You can feel it. There's bloggers. There was one, I think it was Viking Age. I think Kevin Seifert had a tweet where they're starting to like, whoa, it's starting to make sense. Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings. Did you know that the last time a Packers quarterback went to the Jets, he went to the Vikings after? Yeah, we know. We all know. We always get it. This is, to me, one of those stories that you hear a lot about when it's really hard to make content. In the season, everybody's got ideas, right? Everybody's got their thoughts, and everybody can make opinions. You can all do your listicles. You can do your power rankings every week. Like, there's your Tuesday articles done. You do your power rankings. But in the off season, when you have to generate content, you either get really creative stuff, people who want to go in depth, people who are learning a new thing and share it with you. I try to do that the best I can. Or people who take somebody unfollowing their team on Instagram because they deleted their Instagram account or something and spinning it into a trade rumor because they can't come up with anything else, right? And the whole reason that I have kept mailbags as long as I have on Locked On Vikings is to give me a chance, like to force me to engage with the topics that get buzzy, that people are talking about, that people maybe want to hear about, that I don't respect. And this is one of those. I don't respect it. If you are earnestly pushing this, I don't respect you. And there are so many deadbolts on it. When you think about it for like 2 seconds, that make like just a critical thinking perspective that it's not worth thinking about like ever. And to be fair, I think the vast majority of people talking about Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings are really just trying to make the Favre joke, the Packers, Jets, Vikings. Oh, it's the same. Like that, they're just trying to do that. And like, okay, whatever, get your kicks in, but it's not. I'm not going to accuse you of being creative. It's been done. But if you want to get in on it, if you want to say the same joke everyone else is saying, and that, I'm not going to begrudge you that. But if you want to be serious, like, let's benefit of the doubt. Okay. Maybe I'm being too mean. Maybe I'm being too judgmental. Maybe I'm overlooking an idea that actually has merit. Okay. Let's take it face value. The first deadbolt on this that makes it super different from the Favre thing to me is Favre wanted the Vikings specifically. He wanted the Vikings when he first was divorcing with the Packers after 2007. He wanted to go to the Vikings, and it was reported at the time that the Packers would not allow that. They didn't want to cut him because they didn't want him to go to the Vikings. They wanted to trade him so they could keep him away from that. And he had to retire and then unretire and do that thing with the Jets situation to get out of his contract with the Jets. And he had to do the same thing with the Packers the year before because he didn't want to go to the Vikings. There is no allegory here with the Packers. I don't think there's really bad blood with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers any more than there is with any other team. It was a business. It was kind of, that was it. And they traded him and he requested a trade and they granted it. It was not the same situation at all. So that's something. And the other thing is, locker room wise, Brett Favre was seen as a positive locker room thing. Even through his time with the Jets, where he got hurt and he wasn't the same and it was an okay season. And then when he came to the Vikings, it was like, he's going to juice things up. And people said maybe he's going to be a diva and, he's going to be his diva self and it's going to be a problem. But it was pretty clear pretty fast that Brett Favre was really good for the team chemistry of the 2009 Vikings. And that team had a lot of fun and played together. And, he gave them an energy. They all were endeared by this 40-year-old graybeard running around like a kid on Christmas. He was a positive personality. Now, I feel I should say, not all things about Brett Favre's personality are positive. There were some text messages I think we would all like to forget about, and some welfare fraud that also we probably should not speak too much about. But this is not that kind of podcast. But suffice to say, in 2009, in that locker room, he did not divide anyone. The only person that he pulled away from the team was Brad Childress, and that had a lot more to do with Brad Childress. Compare that to Rodgers, who completely divided the Jets. It seems like not even argued that Rodgers was a toxic presence on the Jets. He was in the owner's ear. There was that suspicious meeting, that closed door meeting, I think on the airplane, like 12 hours before they fired Robert Saleh, or maybe it was in London, like that, they say, oh, they didn't have it, they didn't talk about it. But obviously, this like people are going to ask those questions. Not to mention the seeming roster control he had. They brought in Alan Lazard and they brought in Devontae Adams, and none of it worked. The Jets were terrible. They were a better team with Zach Wilson. And that's the other problem with this Aaron Rodgers thing is he's bad. He's a bad quarterback now. It's over. He's older, hilariously, than Brett Favre was when he came to Minnesota. He's 41. Favre was 40. He's very clearly in the twilight of his career. He came off the Achilles. I guess he's as healthy as he's going to be off that Achilles, but he's just not good anymore. And I could see it. The most visible game to me was, of course, Week 5 in London, and I could see it. He was writing checks his arm couldn't cash, and he's going through that moment that every quarterback goes through when they get old. If they're lucky enough, if they're good enough to play until they're old, they get this moment where they can't make the throws that they've built their game off of, and they have to recalibrate their game. And some guys survive it. Tom Brady did, won another Super Bowl. I think Brett Favre did, figured it out, right? And some guys don't. They just don't figure it out. I think Peyton Manning did in 2015. Really, I do. The game he had left in him was a bit more short game, and it wasn't nearly as impressive, but it was good enough, right? And they had a good defense, and they won. Rodgers never did that. And I don't want him to be playing guess and check when we got a rookie waiting in the wings. And then that's the last deadbolt to this, is that the Vikings have J.J. McCarthy, and they're excited about him. The Vikings had Tavares Jackson, and he was their young guy, but he was in year 3, and they were like giving up on him. He was losing a camp competition to Sage Rosenfels when Brett Favre came in. Like, completely different situations. So go get your jokes off, but if you're actually purporting this as a serious option for the Vikings, I think you're just unserious. And you don't have to be serious, but don't expect me to take you seriously.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. I'm looking tonight at Grizzlies Suns. The Grizzlies favored on the road amid all the trade drama in Phoenix, but they're laying just 2 points. Yes, thank you very much. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
A couple of new veteran wide receivers are now about to hit the market.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers.
As the days go by, more and more wide receivers seemingly become available to the Chargers. Davante Adams seems like he's on his way out of New York, and Deebo Samuel officially requested a trade. So obviously that begs the question, who should the Chargers be interested in bringing in? And hey, on Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely dismantled the Kansas City Chiefs. They beat them badly and provided the blueprint possibly for the Chargers and everyone else to beat the Chiefs and remove them from Super Bowl contention in the future. And can the Chargers actually build that team capable of winning the West?
We know there's a way to do it. They are not invincible, but can the Chargers do enough to actually make that leap and finally be competitive in an AFC West that really hasn't been in several years? But I do have to start with the news that's been going around, especially when you know the Chargers need offensive weapons, and now a couple more of them have just entered the realm of possibility with Davante Adams and also Tyreek Hill. It came out that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be back in New York, which means there's almost no likelihood the Jets are going to keep the $38 million cap hit that Davante is going to cost next year. And we found out yesterday that Deebo Samuel has now been granted the permission to go and seek a trade out and find a trade partner for the 49ers. And for a team like the Chargers that needs weapons, these are two more, really high caliber weapons and very productive weapons that now seem like a decent possibility. Now there's more options besides just potentially a T. Higgins or trading for a DK Metcalf. So the first buy or sell starts with this, David, because it is Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Chargers storylines and overreactions. And the first one is this: buy or sell, the Chargers should be interested in Davante Adams.
Yeah, I think you're looking at this and you look at Davante Adams and you say, oh man, he's a little bit up there in age, but then you got to look at the stats, and the stats tell you that the answer is absolutely yes. The Chargers should have a lot of interest in Davante Adams, which, hey, he's got a big, cap number here. His base salary is about $35 million. So he is a clear and obvious cut candidate. The Jets can save $29 million in cap space by letting him go and only absorbing $8 million. And that's something that's going to be really, really easy for them to do. It just seems like a very smart business decision. But when you go into the stats for Davante Adams, it's, even with all this uncertainty and all the change this season, he put up another 1,000-yard receiving season, which I don't think anybody just looking at it from the outside in without looking at the stats would have ever expected that. I mean, it just didn't seem like he put together that type of year, but he absolutely did. And not only that, he's just the model of consistency. That was his 5th 1,000-plus receiving yard season in a row for Davante Adams. So, no matter what the age is, it doesn't matter. The guy still is on the field and producing at an exceptionally high level.
He really is. And you might wonder, okay, well, why the Chargers, right? Why would he potentially want to go to the Chargers outside playing with Justin Herbert? But the report is what made it interesting and immediately made me think of the Chargers, which is from Ian Rappaport, who said Davante Adams left his 2025 contract unchanged and his $38.3 million cap number is untenable. He'd have to agree to a new deal to stay. And with Aaron Rodgers moving on, Adams likely will as well. And Adams would like to be on the West Coast, I'm told. Well, I do know a team that plays out on the West Coast. He is, played high school football in the Bay Area in Santa Clara. So the 49ers, obviously one of those options. The Los Angeles Rams, who have another weapon they're trying to trade in Cooper Kupp. Maybe he's an option, but I mean, they're floating Matthew Stafford out in trade. So maybe that's not realistic. If he wants to play on the West Coast, he just is going to make a ton of money in 2025 anyways, just from getting cut by the Jets. Maybe that is something that makes a lot of sense because it instantly gives you a gigantic upgrade at X receiver, somebody that can win on the outside in one-on-one matchups while you have Ladd McConkey to win on the inside. That's why not every big-time receiver is a good fit for the Chargers specifically, because they have somebody in place in the slot that's already an elite level player, right? Ladd McConkey in many metrics, a top 10, top 15 receiver in the league as a rookie. You need somebody on the outside to help him out and open up better things for him. Davante Adams brings that. I mean, his last 5 games of the year, 36 catches, 510 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He averaged over 100 yards a game and a touchdown per game. And still, like you said, put up 1,063 yards and 85 catches and 8 touchdowns in 14 games. Also had a long of 71. We've seen Justin Herbert with the affinity to take those chances one-on-one on the outside. Now you're getting a guy that has a 50% contested catch percentage in 2024, which is much
really
better
good
than anyone else the Chargers have been linked to so far. And also, we've seen Justin Herbert have that affinity with Mike Williams to throw those back shoulder balls down the sideline. When you get those one-on-one matchups, that changes how teams can attack you. Davante Adams is a back shoulder merchant, and we know that Justin Herbert has the accuracy to put him on him downfield. Very much in favor of Davante Adams in the pursuit of him to fill a gigantic need, and then that pigeonholes you into having to go certain ways in the draft. And it might not be a draft that you want to take offensive receivers or weapons early. We'll talk about that more later. But Deebo Samuel is now another name in the mix because, according to Adam Schefter, the 49ers have granted Deebo Samuel and his agent Torrey Dandy permission to find a trade partner for the wide receiver. So the buyer sells this. The Chargers should trade for Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, I really respect Deebo Samuel's game and what he brings to the table. He definitely is a true kind of gadget receiver, and not just a gadget receiver. Obviously, I like to think of him more as an all-purpose receiver. A guy that you're going to give the ball to.
He's an offensive
backfield.
Weapon.
Yeah. You're going to obviously throw him some passes behind the line of scrimmage. You're going to try to get the ball in his hands quickly because he can definitely make some things happen. However, I don't think that his play style is really conducive to what the Chargers are looking for and what they need in this offense. So I'm definitely going to sell it. Also, when you look at his 2024 stats, they are down quite a lot. I mean, 51 receptions, 670 yards, 3 touchdowns, including 42 rushes, 136 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. He also, to his credit, provided some pretty good kickoff return numbers. 17 returns for 533 yards, including a 60-yard return. Obviously, the Chargers have an all-pro returner, so that's not really of much consequence. But when you just look at what Deebo is and who he is at this stage of his career, he's several years removed from his all-pro season in 2021, and he's not really any kind of semblance of that player here in 2025. So with all that being said, I don't have very much interest in the Chargers pursuing a trade to acquire Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, is there still good football left for Deebo Samuel? I mean, you could talk me into it, right? There's definitely a decline there. You're talking about the lowest, yards per route run that he's had in several seasons, the lowest yards after the catch per catch he's had since ever. It's his lowest in his career, which was still third in the NFL for anyone with 50 plus targets. 8.2 yards after the catch per catch is still insane. But a big part of that is his usage and how he's used. And my bigger thing here, and the reason I'm selling it, is because I don't trust Greg Roman in this offense to be able to use him better than Kyle Shanahan, the guy that put him on the map. I mean, we're talking about a player, if you're looking for an outside receiver that's going to win these one-on-one matchups, this is the guy who only had 3 games of more than 71 yards last season in 15 games. He just hasn't been that guy. And I don't think the Chargers are going to be able to tailor an offense around him or be able to use him as a running back, which, by the way, last year he averaged 3.2 yards per carry, the lowest in his career. So not really being used as a wide back where he's making an impact as a running back, and you can't consistently use him like that at this age and just keep giving him those hits. Maybe a team finds a better way to use him or can find a way to get him back to the numbers that he was putting up several years ago, but like the numbers are going down. The missed tackles that he's forcing on a, per catch basis is going down. And I just don't trust the Chargers to kind of be able to revamp creatively his role on an offense and have him start producing those numbers again. I don't think it's a good fit for the Chargers. I think the Chargers should stay away from that and much rather, even though he's an older dude in Davante Adams, get a guy for no draft capital that fills a gigantic need in the offense and let me focus on other parts now with my draft capital, with the other resources I have to make this a more complete team, but check off a huge weapon off of the list. But we did see over the weekend the Chiefs lose, and not only lose, get dismantled. And they did really put together a blueprint of, hey, this is what works against the Chiefs.